Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking at the kind of taboo subject that all writers just seem to cringe at when the very name is mentioned. This is the Mary Sue, Gary Stu stereotype and how to avoid them. First off, I would like to apologise for how tired I look. I am very tired because I was woken up at about 2:30 in the morning because there was a police van driving up and down my street, and I think someone got arrested. I don't know, it happened further up in the cul-de-sac, so I don't actually know what happened and I couldn't see because I am that nosy neighbour that will try and peek out the window. But yeah, no idea on details, but they were very loud and I could not get back to sleep afterwards because my brain was active at that point. I wanted to know what was going on and I wasn't getting any answers, and you know, I was double checking to make sure the doors were locked, so. But anyway, that is not why we're here today. We are here because we are talking about the idea of the Mary Sue, or the male version, the Gary Stu. I honestly find both of those names hilarious, that is what the internet and the culture behind them has decided to call it, so there we go. First off, what is a Mary Sue? What is it that people just seem to cringe at? That in itself is a lot harder to define than I originally thought, because the name has altered somewhat. Originally it was a self-insert that fanfiction writers would, you know, put into their stories so that the writer themselves could walk among the characters in this crazy new world and have their own mini adventures. Likewise, there are a few certain really big published works, the Signs of Mary Sue's, where the characters are actually the writers that have just put themselves into their work in order to experience their own ideas. That has changed a lot, because now we think of Mary Sue as the empty shell of a character, the cardboard cutout that the reader can just hide behind in order to relate to what's going on around them. They don't really have much of a personality. If they do, it just seems to be the generic likable personality where everyone just automatically loves them. They're just automatically good at everything. They are the single most important thing in that universe, but they're just so gosh darn nice about it that you just can't really be mad at them about it. But really, it's true, they don't do much to push the story forward. They just kind of let things happen around them, and whenever they do something, it seems to alter the world around them in ways that it really shouldn't, just so that they can come out on top, just so that they can achieve something and be like, look, I did a thing, and everyone's just like, oh, go you hard worker, you. But really, you look at it and they're just bland. They have nothing to them. They don't really have set goals. They don't have strong personality traits, and a lot of people try to combat this by giving them one flaw. Maybe they'll put like, oh, they're clumsy, oh, they're you know, they've got a little bit of an anger issue. Like, yeah, but why? Like, you don't have to have a reason for someone to be clumsy, but if you're gonna have flaws, there's got to be reasons behind them. There's got to be some kind of good backstory of why they'd have anger issues, why they'd have trust issues. And if you see someone with anger issues, they're not automatically loved on sight by everybody. There has to be some conflict there, but for them, oh, they're just plucky. Oh, I'm fine, you don't worry about me, you take your anger out on me, we're good. That does not happen in real life. It should not happen for your characters. If they're going to be pissy, they have to have a reason for being pissy, and there has to be consequences around other people for them being pissy towards them. Some examples of Mary Sue's and Gary Stu's, and I might get some flack for this because everyone has their own interpretation, but this is just what I've kind of found. And obviously the one that instantly pops to my head is Bella Swan from Twilight and Tress from the Divergent series. They have no goals, they're just kind of there. They don't really have anything that they want to do, and if they do want to do it, it just seems to come out of nowhere and things just happen to work out for them. And yeah. But then you're also looking at Wade Watts, the main character from Ready Player One, and he is a massive Mary Sue, Gary Stu, because he's a whiny little runt and a massive creep. When you look at it, he is a huge creep, a pervert. He is just a whiny, pathetic lump of a human being, and yet suddenly everything just seems to work out for him. He automatically knows all the puzzles. He, or the girl likes him because the girl is perfectly tailored to what he wants in that story. It's so stupid. But then you also look at it, and by that logic, Lara Croft and James Bond are also Mary Sues. The rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than we thought. At the end of the day, a Mary Sue is the idea that they are the most important thing, but we're not given any reason why. If we are not given a reason to care about this character and not a reason to understand and relate to this character, then there's really not a lot of potential and story there. And development goes out the window, because if they start off as the perfect individual, then you know that they're not going to develop, and character development is one of the main things that you need in your story. You can see why there is such a stereotype around them, because you want your characters to be strong and defined and have development and relationships and really be strong and you want people to relate to them, but you don't want to have a character that's just bland and the only reason they're relatable is because everybody wants to be them, but not for the right reasons. God, this has been a long rant already in just explaining what my interpretation of Mary Sue is. I'm sorry. But there are ways that you can avoid this, and I have tried so hard to make sure that I have been avoiding them. Guaranteed I will have a few traits in there that need to be strengthened and adjusted, but I'm doing my best. We have all fallen victim to writing a Mary Sue at some point. I have written self-insert fanfictions before. I have started off my writing with this is a badass character, and that is pretty much it. And I have long since abandoned or readjusted those stories because it just doesn't work like that. It does not make for an interesting read, it does not make for a compelling character, and again, character development goes out the window. So like I said, there are ways to avoid writing a Mary Sue, and some of them sound so obvious, but when you put the theory into practice, it changes things to a whole other level. You can say give your character strong goals and aims, because that is the main point of character development. You want to make sure that this character wants to do something or needs to do something. Maybe they're in a time limit, maybe there's something coming and they need to make sure that they're prepared for it. You don't know. There needs to be a strong aim there, a goal. There needs to be a reason for them to act and take action, and they don't have to be leaders. They could be part of a group, they could be struggling on their own, they could be, the youngest sibling that's forgotten in the background, they could be anything. They don't need to be a leader. They just need to have something that wants to drive the story forward. There needs to be something in them. There needs to be a spark. There needs to be a spark that they need to just act on. But in that, failure. They also need to fail. You can't have everything work on the first go. Life doesn't work like that, and if you're in a high-stakes situation where lives are on the line, there's definitely not going to be a chance where things work first time. How does your character react to failure? Do they handle it gracefully? That depends on the situation. Or do they handle it with anger? Do they get really... do they blame themselves? Do they get guilty? Is there an element of survivor's guilt in there? Is there a feeling like, oh god, I let everybody down? There needs to be an internal conflict in order for your characters to shine. Also, in order to really make sure that your character is not becoming, the center of the universe, there needs to be a good set of characters alongside them to challenge them, to put them in their place, to lift them up. There needs to be a good dynamic there, because one person on their own can make a good story, but if you have no one else to compare them to, then it can feel a little bit bland. Say your character is, they like to think of themselves as strong and independent and they don't need anybody, but then there's another character who thinks along the same way but has understood actually, I've done the Lone Ranger thing and you do need people sometimes, there's going to be a conflict there. Likewise, if your character's flaw is that they have anger issues, that they are very quick to judge, they're very quick to rage, that's not going to sit well with everybody. You're going to have other characters that are like, now hang on a minute, I know you're pissed off, but you do not take this out on me, and there needs to be a challenge. Because challenges in plots and challenges with characters are two very similar things. They all work towards pushing your characters forward and getting them to develop, getting over emotional and physical hurdles in order to get to where they want to go. At the end of the day, your characters, I've said this before and I will keep saying it, whatever character you start with is not the one you finish with, because their development has altered and changed so much. They've seen more of the world, they've interacted with more people, they've learned, they've developed, they're stronger at the end. Now, when it comes to skills, say you want a character that's great at fighting, or you want them to take part in fights at some point in the story. Just saying that they're a skilled fighter doesn't really cut it. I mean, and you can even, when people do like, oh, they've had one training montage and suddenly they're like samurai expert or something like that. Stuff like that takes years and years of training and dedication and discipline. Sometimes you have to learn on your feet, and that can go either way. Sometimes you can get beginner's luck, sometimes you will get your ass handed to you. It's the same for characters. If you're going to make them a skilled fighter, make sure that you've narrowed it down to a type of fighting. Is it like a brawl street fighting? Is it a type of martial arts? Is it a type of self-defense? If they have that skill, how do they have that skill? Why have they learnt it? Is it maybe they took classes because they wanted to, it was just a hobby? Was it something that their parents forced them into? Maybe they were part of a secret training camp. Maybe they've been trained from a young age to be a lethal weapon and now they're starting to wonder why they needed to live their lives this way. It could go in any direction, but there needs to be a solid reason. You can't have someone who has never painted in their life suddenly pick up a brush and be the next Picasso. You just can't do it. You can't have someone sit down to write their first movie and suddenly be the next Steven Spielberg. It takes time, training, and lots of trial and error. If you're not going to show it in your story, then you need to at least give a reason from their past and their backstory of why they know it now. But you need to have a select few. You can't have them be good at everything, because that's just a cop-out and annoying, and honestly it puts a lot of people in a vicious circle of writer's block, because if they're good at everything, then why is the story taking so long? If they're good at everything, can't they just jump to the end? You need the development, you need the reasons why, you need the backstory. Give your characters something that they need to work on. It's all very well having the overall goal. The goal will often end up being the lie, and what I mean by that is your character will start off the story thinking, right, I need to do this in order to get this done, or I need to be here to save this person's life. I need to do this ritual in order to stop the monster. That's what I need to do, and they have a very set way in their mind of how it's done. Like I said, have other people challenge them, have things go wrong, and things do go wrong, and they realise that the way they've been brought up, the way that their mind works, they can't have that mindset anymore. Something has happened where they've realised, oh, I was wrong, I've made things worse, now I need to change in order to fix it. Have that change, because that's development, that is strength, that is human. It is human to learn from your mistakes, and if you're doing a Mary Sue and they're already good at everything, they're not going to have these mistakes. They're not going to learn, they're not going to develop, and it's not going to make for a good character. Give them unpopular opinions. Make them, I don't know, like pineapple on pizza. Give them something that is not quite the norm, but it's not too, blatantly obvious. Just have them disagree with other characters. Give them a political opinion. Give them no political opinion. Just give them something that really defines their character. Give them a style of music that they like. Give them a genre of book that they refuse to read. Give them tiny tidbits and details that will make them differ from other members of the cast that will, again, cause some conflict. If they see a character reading, a trashy novel, are they going to be like, oh, what are you reading? Or are they going to be like, oh god, what are you reading? Just little tones like that can make a character come across so strong. Take a look around at, friends, family. I'm not saying base characters on friends and family, because that can lead down to a very messy route and people might take offense and it's just adding so much pressure on yourself. I would never recommend that, but I would recommend take a look at people's mannerisms, their quirks. Maybe they have like a nervous tic, maybe they have a very distinct personality trait that you don't necessarily agree with, but there are people out there who do, and it makes for interesting conversations. Just take a look at people around you, because everyone has very unique little aspects about them that make them who they are. Use it. Use these little traits, mix and mash, combine them to make something completely new, because that makes someone unique and interesting. It is a writer's hope that people will relate to their characters in some way, but that doesn't mean that the reader necessarily has to agree with everything that the characters are doing. I have read books where I have absolutely adored characters and I've related to them because, they're creative types, or maybe they are interested in a type of music that I like, that they have their morals in the right place, they're a little bit morally grey, which I like. I've related to characters in that sense. But then there's been times where they've done things like, oh, I wouldn't do that, or oh, that was a stupid move. They said things to other characters where I've been like, whoa, no, that's going too far. It makes you invested and it just brings the character to life, knowing that you're not going to relate to every single thing about them. There are going to be conflicts, not just between the characters, but between the reader and the story itself, because that makes you more invested in the world. This video has already gone on so long. I hope this has been of some help to you, but I'm just going to end this on a bit of a cheesy note, but it's kind of my favourite point in all this, and that is, have fun and be creative. There are so many different combinations and different ways of making people and their personalities that the writing world is literally endless with possibilities. Why would you want to confine yourself to making something so basic and cookie cutter? Why try and please the masses when you can create something strong that will please the masses in a different way? Give them something to think about, something to chew on, rather than just be like, look, it's you. You can be a thing. When people can read a book and be like, oh wow, this is cool, this is making me think, oh I like the story here, or this character I'm a little bit iffy on, but I like when they did this. Give them something to talk about. Give them a story and give them characters that they can talk about and discuss. Not something that's just going to be, that was a thing. Because that's not what you want. It's very easy to try and fit in with what's mainstream at the moment. If you try and write something that everyone is reading in this moment, it's tricky, but you have this thing like, oh, everyone's reading this at the moment, so I can cash in on this. But guaranteed, whatever is trending in mainstream right now is not going to be trending in mainstream by the time you get your story published. By then, it's just going to be another addition to a has-been pile, and that is not what you want. Write something strong and distinctive to set the next trend. Just have fun. Have fun creating characters, because there are thousands, millions even, just waiting to be created, and they are all strong and defined and have the potential to fail and the potential to succeed and be amazing. So, in conclusion, the Mary Sue, Gary Stu stereotype is frustrating, and we've all been there, and sometimes it can be very easy to slip into those situations. But there are always times when you can get out of this rut and make something stronger. And that is my challenge for you, to make something strong, defined, and amazing. And I hope this video helped you in some way. If you have any advice for me, please let me know, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, my scribblers.